Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Julia Beauchamp, and I'm joined as always by Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon, as well as Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus. Topic of the day, Apple discontinuing the iMac Pro. And if you're watching us live on LinkedIn or on YouTube, please do leave a comment or a question if you have anything burning that you feel like needs to be added or asked, and we'll get to it during the live broadcast. If we don't, we'll try our best to get to it after the fact. So iMac Pro being discontinued, and this is sort of as rumors are suggesting that an M1 iMac is possibly in the pipeline. So, Ken, I'll throw it to you. What does this, mean for the iMac Pro? Who was the iMac Pro for? And is an M1 iMac going to completely eliminate the need for a Pro line completely?
Sure seems that way. I was thinking, thank God I wasn't waiting for, to buy an iMac Pro since it's now almost too late. It's interesting. The iMac Pro, over the last couple, 2 or 3 years, has really become sort of a tech cul-de-sac for Apple. It came out in 2017. It was supposed to be the ultimate iMac Pro. And I think, I was looking at a piece that Jason Snell had on Macworld today talking about the background. And, I don't remember this at the time, but his theory is that at that point, Apple was sort of thinking of the iMac Pro as like the new Mac Pro with a screen. And then, a little bit later on, Apple decided to actually revamp the Mac Pro, bring it out.
Right.
And then the iMac Pro didn't really have a reason for living, especially at the really high price that it, so far, I think was it $49.99, Mike? Is that what it was?
$5,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's an awful lot for an iMac. I mean, I'm using one right now that we're, for this video. It's a 2017 model, and I mean, again, I'm not really, doing a lot of video editing, things like that on it. So it's not that I'm not taxing it that much, but it also didn't go for $49.99. So yeah, Apple has discontinued it, and I suppose that if you really want a 4-year-old iMac that's really not been updated since 2017, and you want to spend $5,000 for something with an Intel chip that's going to be discontinued or in a line being discontinued, go for it. But that's my roundabout way of saying don't do that. Wait for what we assume will be an updated iMac this year. Michael, what's the thinking around the new iMac and the M1 or M whatever chip that may be coming?
Yeah, I mean, I would bet any amount of money that I have that there's one coming this year, because the iMac, first of all, the design hasn't changed in quite some time. Not
Right.
that there's anything wrong with it. It's still the nicest all-in-one, and it's a fantastic machine. But it's stale. It's that has a big giant chin. It has big bezels. It has a tapered design with you can't adjust the height, which is the most annoying thing. You can only go back and forth with it. Everyone that I know who has an iMac has it on a riser because it's too low on a desk. It needs to be higher. And if there is a way to adjust the screen, my high watermark for the iMac always is the iMac G4. I loved that machine.
Is that
the little dome with the
one?
arm? Yeah.
Yes, I love that design.
The greatest
Absolutely,
design,
my favorite too.
The greatest
Yes.
iMac, one of the greatest designs ever Apple ever came out with.
That's a piece of art. You could put it on the
mind
shelf.
blowing. Yeah.
Yes.
Mind blowing when it came out. And even still today, if they came out with a retro one, I'd buy one. It's gorgeous. It's functional. It's the perfect everything you want in an iMac. So the iMac G5, I think it was at the time, that replaced that model. Then it was the Intel Max, and now it's this
Was
one.
that the big square white one?
Yeah.
G5?
So it
Yeah.
was this type of design. It was
Yeah.
plastic. It was white. It kind of resembled an iPod with that glossy veneer. Then it went to metal, and now it has this. But that design, that square, non-movable screen, we've had that now for like 15 years or something, where we can't. It's frustrating because the iMac went from like the pinnacle of functionality, the perfect marriage of form and function, just absolutely perfect. And now we have, it's great. It's just not what it could be. So there are things that need to be fixed. And also, it's just old. It's been this particular model Apple has had for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years at least.
I was going to say 7
maybe,
or 8,
maybe longer. Yeah, it's been a while. Now, as far as the iMac Pro being discontinued, not a surprise in the slightest. And you only need to realize that Apple didn't announce it, and pushed a While Supplies Last like little subhead on its website on a Saturday morning. That's how much the iMac Pro matters to the tech world. It's not an important machine. At the time, the reason why the iMac Pro existed was because Apple was absolutely bamboozled and flummoxed with its Pro machine, its Pro desktop machine.
That was the one that was a trash can, right? At the time?
So that was the one that was out. And almost immediately when that released, people said, "What is this? Like, it's cool. It's just not." It was completely not what pros needed.
It was a new version of the Cube.
It was
went
right,
just as far.
right. So it was crippled in a lot of ways. It was hard to manage in a lot of ways, and it looked cool, but professionals who want that level of computing power, they don't give a crap if it's cool looking or not. They just want a box that works well and doesn't give them any trouble or any fuss or any issues. And that one was full of that stuff. Not to mention Apple ignored it for several years. So the processor that was in it, while extraordinarily fast, wasn't as fast as the Windows workstations that were launching at the 2 years later. So the iMac Pro was that.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, wasn't the debate and the complaints about the Mac Pro, the trash can Mac Pro, wasn't that the reason that Schiller at one of the WWDCs or whatever said, "Oh, the rumors that we can't innovate my ass" or something like that?
Yeah, that was
sort of bragging.
Yeah, when they came out with that machine, that was the announcement of the it had this next level thermal cooling and all this other stuff, and it was cool, and it was, to look at it on the website, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But the people who needed it, what they wanted and needed it to do, it didn't quite, as far as the PCI slots and the ports, it was hard to get to, the repairability, and then of course how Apple neglected the upgrades going forward. So the iMac Pro was basically, okay, listen, they acknowledged that they were years away at that point from releasing what we now know as the Mac Pro, that now it's
the new cheese grater.
Yeah, and it's once again functional. It's a rectangular box. Listen, I know Apple wants to make these different shaped computers, and they're great for an all-in-one. A Pro, everything that you buy for a PC is modular and rectangular, like it needs to be that. Mm-hmm. Apple realized that once again. Okay, so we tried cylinder, it ain't working. So we're going to go back to and you can make a rectangular a PC rectangle tower that looks awesome, and they did.
I think the current Mac Pro is awesome.
It's great. It's fantastic. Yeah. So when the iMac Pro launched, they were still about 1.5 years to 2 years away from this. And they said, this is the greatest Mac ever made. It had a Xeon processors up to 18 cores and Radeon graphics the first time in a Mac. The 5K screen, which we already had, but it was, and the big thing was that now it's in space gray, so it even had some of that cool cachet factor that you couldn't get in the lesser iMacs. And yeah, it was $5,000. It wasn't overpriced by any stretch. What it was it was appealing to somebody who wanted a Pro machine but didn't want to upgrade it. So for the price of a screen. Yeah, right. So for basically the price of a Mac Pro, which was just the tower, you got everything, and you could work. So I think anyone who bought an iMac Pro or will buy one today, it's a fantastic machine if you are the target audience.
Mm-hmm.
What would the target audience be now, though? Again, the usual rule in technology is, buy it now if you need it now, hold off if you can.
Yeah.
Unless you really need something extremely specific for an Intel-based iMac Pro, I don't know. I can't think of any reason to recommend buying one of these now.
Certainly not. Certainly not at full price. If you can get one for like $3,500, maybe. Yeah. If you can get like a B&H Photo or Amazon has a blowout, or so, I don't think Amazon sells them. Whoever sells them, if you can get one for a discount, and it's still going to be a very capable machine for years and years and years to come. If you a heavy podcast editor or a video editor that doesn't need an array of Macs or that type of rendering power, something like that, or someone like that, because I don't think we're going to see an iMac Pro M1 per se.
No, the iMac, the new iMac, whatever it is, will effectively be a Pro model because the processor, the whole SoC in it, M1, M2, M1X, whatever it's called, will
Mhm.
be more powerful than what's in the iMac Pro now, I assume.
Right.
And
The
I was just going to say that kind of leads me to the next point, and Mike, feel free to go back to your point. But what does this kind of mean for the future of the Pro line? If like, where do they go from here? If an M1 Mac is going to be, at least in this case, as useful, as powerful as the iMac Pro. But Mike, sorry to cut you off.
no, that's fine. I mean, that speaks to my point anyway. What I was going to say is that the iMac Pro was mainly about computing performance. It had extra Thunderbolt ports that you couldn't get on the lower iMac, and it had higher storage configurations, higher memory configurations. But that's a lot less important. Certainly the storage and the memory now with online storage, and also with the way the M1 handles RAM. So I don't think it needs to exist. And I also think sales dictate this stuff. I'm sure the sales of the iMac Pro were, abysmal, because if you're going to spend $5,000, certainly now you're going to spend $6,000 and get a Mac Pro.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my recommendation. If you're going to spend that much money, just get the Mac Pro, because you probably have a great display hanging around anyway.
Well, I mean, other than a couple of minor upgrades, I think maybe in 2019, it's essentially the same iMac Pro that arrived 4 years ago.
Yeah, all they did was basically move the
Added
low-end
some RAM
processor.
capacity, right?
Yeah, it hasn't changed much, but those chips are stupendously fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not slow by any stretch.
Has there been any speculation or talk about whether there will be a redesign? I mean, I'm not expecting anything. I just to date myself here, but the first iMacs were very important to bringing Apple back in the late 1990s. The gumdrop iMacs, remember those in the colors and all that? And I mean, I certainly don't expect Apple to go back to something like that. It wouldn't make sense. But do we assume that maybe we'll be looking at some rounded corners, maybe a hinge or a leveling, way of lifting it?
The only rumors we've heard so far is that they're going to get rid of the bezels and the chin, and it's going to be closer to that Pro XDR display, the way that looks, with just a uniform slim bezel all around. John Prosser said that he heard that there's going to be colors that match the iPad Air. So what's that, blue, green, like a reddish pink?
I like that. I like the blue in the iPad Air. That's my fave. Yeah.
The what's interesting, and my question is, who wants one? Like, even if let's say it's $1,200 and it's gorgeous. Like, back in 1998 when the iMac launched, not only was it like a revolution in the sense that computers they didn't look like this at all, but it brought the PC to like a very cool consumer level.
Your living room. You could put it in the living room,
exactly.
and it would not stand out as something scary and ugly.
Kids wanted them, and teenagers thought they were cool. Nobody wants a desktop right now. Like, not nobody, but certainly not as many people. They want a laptop. I think
maybe
Apple.
A monitor.
Yeah. Okay. To right, when you're at a desk, right? But something they can pick up and go. I think Apple would be better served. All right, better served is the wrong word. But I think they should look at like maybe something like the iBook. Like, the iBook was the iMac, but in a portable factor. If they came out with a MacBook that had those slim bezels, was in colors, I think that would sell way better than an iMac. But I mean, somebody's buying them. People are buying them, and they're great machines. It just when you put something into colors like the iPad Air, you're appealing to a certain demographic of people. And the iMac from the late 90s iMac, it was appealing to, like you say, kids, families with kids.
Got one for my mom. She loved it. It was in purple. It's her first big computer.
It was taking the computer and saying, hey, this doesn't have to be this dull box that you use at work. We want, this is for your house. It's an art piece for your house. I don't know if people are buying iMacs anymore or desktops at all, unless the Mac Pro probably sells because it's super high end stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would want one. I don't know if I'd buy one.
Something to think about too. I mean, and this just speaks to where we are, in terms of desktops. if companies had been buying an iMac in the past, like, we did, IDG did. I
Yeah,
was
I've got an
using it.
iMac.
Exactly. But, going forward, you have to wonder how many people are going to be sitting at desks in offices.
Right.
We're doing a
there's
lot
that
of
too.
talk.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of reporting at Computer World about, the hybrid workforce and how remote work is here to stay. Companies will have some people come in, some people work from home, flexible. And I just wonder if a company is looking to buy, is into the Mac OS ecosystem and is looking for a computer, doesn't it make more sense to get somebody a laptop than
Yeah.
an iMac that's going to sit on a desk somewhere, either at home or and Mike, you make the point, you can't take it anywhere. It sits
Yeah.
there.
And you're spending, so you're looking at $1,500, say. If someone came to
beginners.
me and said, "Hey, I have $1,500 to spend and I want to get a Mac," I'd say get the MacBook Pro, or wait for the 14-inch
Yeah.
that's rumored, or if you want something bigger, wait for the 16-inch that's rumored. But the iMac, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. There's no doubt about that. But you have to realize you're going to need a laptop with it. It's not good, even if you use it for your whole workday and you're happy with sitting at an office or a desk, I think you're gonna need something else, whether it's an iPad or a MacBook, because there's no one who uses an iMac or any kind of a computer that doesn't need it to travel, something in some
Right.
form.
There's no likelihood that Apple would be releasing an iMac in March. Isn't there an event expected like March
Yeah.
23rd?
Yeah,
It wouldn't come this soon, would it?
I mean, I don't know. We have gotten spring update iMacs before. It's possible. iMac, it's tough to track Mac supply chain stuff because they're always making stuff, and it's also they don't have to ramp up in the numbers that the iPhone does, or even the iPad for that matter. So it's trickier to track these rumors. So it is possible that the iMac lands in. I mean, I guess it could arrive in March or April, but I'm thinking most likely June, WWDC ish. There was a report the other day that the laptops were now, the production had shifted a little bit. So what was supposed to be summer might now be fall. But again, it's tricky to track this stuff because there's not as many numbers that you need. So the reason why we get so many leaks of the iPhone is because they have to make 50 million of them. They don't have to do that for the new Mac. So
it's
tricky,
impossible to hide the production on those.
Exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Someone's going to say something.
Someone's going to know.
Yeah,
Someone's going
right.
to leak that picture of the prototype or whatever,
Right.
and then it's off to the races. Probably not so much for the iMac.
Right. So that could land at a moment's notice, and they can also, they don't have to have a stash of them ready to go when they announce them. It could
I don't
say,
think it'll be by
they could
press
ship them.
release either.
I doubt it. Now that if it's such a big redesign, they would probably make an event out of it. But
And they want to talk about the chip, assuming
Yeah.
it's either the M1 or something, some permutation that's a little more advanced. I'm sure they're going to want to talk about that
Yeah.
every time they roll something out now.
yeah, I mean, Apple's in an interesting position where we're probably looking at another 12 months of no in-person events at Apple campus, so they can really do whatever they want to do. It's all online.
Yeah.
So if they want to have a quick little event for the iMac that's 30 minutes, they can do that. They don't have to get everyone to go to their campus and have them do it hands-on. Like that's a whole hassle. They can just put together a keynote and say April 16th, we're gonna come and watch this with us for a half hour.
Yeah. So coming soon, a new iMac. Rest in peace, iMac Pro.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising when I saw it on a Saturday morning. It wasn't surprising that it's gone because I don't know how many people were buying it in the first place.
Well, then I'm curious who's buying the M1 iMac if it's coming.
That's
the
what I'm
whatever
saying.
iMac. Right.
There was a time when you could bank on businesses upgrading or
Totally.
schools upgrading, but I don't know. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
the case anymore.
I guess I could see it maybe more in schools, but because you're right. Like Ken
But
was
even
mentioning,
schools
hybrid
have-
work. Yeah, the schools are using Chromebooks,
They're using
right?
Chromebooks, yeah, and
Yeah.
iPads. Like my son would never I don't care how cool it is. He's in third grade. He would never want a computer that doesn't leave his desk ever.
That's a good point.
So that whole generation, forget it. Like they don't want desktops of any sort. He doesn't even like sitting for a 40-minute Zoom call, let alone for 3 hours to do his work.
Juliet,
Right.
let me turn it back on you. I mean, you're using an iMac. I was going to say, I would think that maybe one use case would be video editing where you need the larger screen. You need
Yeah.
some sort of punch in terms of processing power. And, the editing you're doing, you're not likely to be doing that in the backyard on a laptop. You could, but I mean, in terms of, big screen and needing that. So maybe for some subset of video editors.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've got an iMac here at work, but I haven't used it since September. It's been sitting here in the office. I haven't brought it home. And even when I did have it at home, I wasn't using it that often. I've got a pretty powerful Windows laptop to use for video editing purposes. And I frankly am not using it that much. I mean, even when I had the iMac and I also had a laptop, I would use the iMac more just because it was desktop, bigger screen. But I can see a situation in which a lot of people are just going to say, hey, I've already got my laptop. I want an external monitor, but I don't know if I necessarily need a whole standalone desktop computer.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So I don't know. I guess maybe this is an interesting question. Where does, desktop computers for Apple go from here? I mean, it makes sense that the first devices to get the M1 chips or the Apple Silicon chips, because future ones maybe aren't going to be called M1, M1X, whatever, what have you. It makes sense now that the first devices to get them were laptops because they're portable and everyone's using them now, and they're also much more inexpensive.
And they're also the biggest sellers that Apple
totally
has.
So I'm kind of curious where does desktop devices, where do they go from here? Do either of you have any thoughts on that?
Way back when the iPhone was just launching and the iPad was just launching, Steve Jobs said PCs were trucks.
Mm-hmm.
People took that to mean that they were, obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted them anymore. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think what that means is that they have a function.
They're workhorses.
Yeah, and you need them. Like we need trucks. We need to deliver stuff from place to place. They're just not. They're not everywhere, and they're not the thing that people want. I don't even know how many people are buying Macs. I mean, they're selling more, but if you look at the trend of PC sales, it's going down every year a little bit. I think last year it ticked up a bit because of the unique situation, but for the most part, they decline every year. And as each generation arrives, something new comes along, and they, you work on that, an iPad, an iPhone, whatever it is. I think if PCs are trucks, then desktops are like 18-wheelers because they're even more specific.
Totally.
And they do serve a purpose. But no one's buying those. Like I'm not gonna they're like a business has to buy them. Yeah,
no, I don't want to see that on the highway.
I don't know anyone in my life that has asked me for advice on a desktop computer in so many years. Some people have them. If they do, they're old. Like I have an iMac, you can't see it, but there's one behind me that's I don't know 2013. I never use it, but it's there. I don't think. Listen, Apple's making it because they looked at the numbers and they must be selling them to somebody. But the numbers compared to the MacBook has got to be extremely weighted toward the MacBook, 80-20 maybe, something like that.
I would think in the future, it would make more sense to have some combo of a laptop and you've just got a dummy screen. If you need a big screen, you just plug in your laptop and, over the years, might upgrade
we
the laptop
we can kind of do that if you know what you're doing. But it would be, can you imagine that? Let's think about that for a moment. So it's an iMac body, and you could just reach in and pop out the screen and take it with you as an iPad. That would be friggin' amazing.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So like something like that, like a fancy
Apple, if you're listening.
Does Microsoft have something similar to that? You can't pop out the screen, but it's touch screen.
They have the Surface.
They have that table thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Microsoft makes a bunch of things like that. I forget what it's called, the Surface Studio or something. That
Yeah.
yeah,
That sounds right.
It can lay flat, but it's big.
Right. We've actually got a question from LinkedIn, and this is just a reminder to everyone watching on LinkedIn or YouTube. If you've got any questions, comments as we're wrapping up here, do throw them in the chat so we can answer them before we wrap up. This seems like it might be a kind of specific question, but I think it can kind of speak to like a larger question. This viewer is asking, is TensorFlow, which is, it seems like a software, supported on M1 MacBooks? So I don't know if you guys know the specifics around that, but I think there's a larger question of, is anything not supported right now on M1 MacBooks?
No, because you can run it under Apple's emulation environment, which is called
Right.
Rosetta.
Rosetta too, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know if
Or is it
Tensor.
whatever?
I'm googling it as we speak. I don't know if
It works.
TensorFlow has a
It's an open source platform for
M1
machine
native
learning.
thing.
Totally.
Okay.
If it
So-
runs on Intel, it should run on an M1. It may not be
Yeah.
native yet, but it should run and will probably run just fine. Everything I've seen in terms of apps that have not yet been updated for M1, they run as fast or faster than they did on Intel using the emulation. So it should be okay.
There you go. Hope that answered your question.
I'm looking at their blog, and it says users do not need to make any changes to their existing TensorFlow scripts to use ML Compute as a backend for TensorFlow and TensorFlow add-on. So it absolutely works under the M1 architecture. So
Got it. Well, then maybe I'm just going to anticipate this viewer's next question, and then I think we can pretty much wrap up. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts about this, but anticipating this viewer's next question is the $1 million question. Should I upgrade now to an M1 MacBook Pro, or should I wait until the 14 or the 16 or whatever comes out?
the March event.
Sure.
Oh, you mean the 14 or 16 inch laptop? I mean, again, it's always that same question. If you need it, get it.
Right.
If you need a 13-inch
if you can
M1 now,
hold on
go for it.
for possibly 6 months, because we don't know.
Right.
It might not be till so the M1 MacBooks launched in October of November, I think it was
November
last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it is possible they don't launch till November of this year. I don't know what production issues they're going to have. I don't know what their schedule is. I don't know how well the current Intel 16-inch, like all those factor into Apple's decision. I originally thought we were going to see it in June. Recent rumors suggest that it might be later than that. So yeah, if you can hold off, go ahead. But if you're okay with a 13-inch computer screen and you don't need 4 USB-C ports, the 13-inch MacBook Pro is fantastic.
Yeah,
Perfect.
what Michael said. Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully that answered your question. And if not, feel free to qualify it and drill it down a bit more. Maybe we can get back to you after the fact. But I think that's pretty much it. If anyone was watching on LinkedIn, on Computer World's LinkedIn, do know that we've also got a YouTube channel, IGG Tech Talk, where we're also streaming this live. You can head over there, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video, which is just about every weekday, and we're live just about every Thursday. So Ken, Mike, thank you so much for calling in and joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Sure. See you soon.
And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, like I mentioned, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. And if you've got any questions or comments, if you're watching this after the fact, after we've gone live, do leave them in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts. And if you got a specific question, I'll get back to you, or I'll get back to you on Mike or Ken's behalf. Thanks again for watching.